Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Fireside Chat, where we will be discussing new trends in marketing and the key risks and the rewards marketers need to be aware of as we finish out the year. I'm Mollie Hughes. I am the CEO and co-founder of Softly Solutions. We provide tools that help businesses navigate all of the rules and regulations having to do with what you can and cannot say about products, especially when it comes to green marketing and sustainability. So we have a new tool that we're going to be launching to the public today, and it's designed to help you reduce greenwashing risk and outperform your competition. So you're going to want to stick around because during this webinar, toward the end, we're going to be providing a quick demo of this really awesome tool. This platform is so easy to use and immediately provides you all the regulations, the case law, and the competitive information you need to confidently market the sustainability attributes of your product or service without having to worry about saying something wrong or, God forbid, being hit with a greenwashing lawsuit. Trust me, you are going to want to stick around for that. Okay, with me today on this exciting day is Jim Lecinski. Jim is an acclaimed author and clinical professor of marketing at the prestigious Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management. He is one of the best in the business and was named Kellogg Professor of the Year in 2022. He's written books about the new marketing model, and his latest project got lots of accolades. It was named both a top AI book and a top business book, which is a big deal. It's called the AI Marketing Canvas. I just cannot wait to talk to you, Jim, and hear about the predictions and advice for marketers that you have as we prepare for 2025. So let's get into it. Welcome.
Hi, Molly. Great to be with you. Thanks for that warm introduction. Excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite topics.
Awesome. Holy moly. I don't know about you, but I cannot believe we are in the fourth quarter of 2024.
Yeah, where did the year go, right? I mean, September even just poof, came and went.
Exactly. So before we start talking about the future, I want to hear a little bit about you and how you first got your feet wet in marketing. What were you doing then, and how have you seen things change over time?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you wind the clock way back, my undergraduate degree was in German and international relations or government. Never took a marketing course, never took a psychology course, never took a business course. Did a little work and then went to business school and took my required core marketing course and actually just really loved it. I sparked to it. I had a wonderful professor who, if you want to talk about, actually kind of sparked my desire to become a professor all these many years later. But he brought the material to life, really trying to get inside the heads of your target audience, your consumers, your customers, trying to figure out how to drive business growth through all the marketing levers and tools and frameworks. Led me to take another and another and another and another course. And my first job was actually as a marketing manager at, well, I guess a antecedent or a predecessor of Accenture, which many people would know as Andersen Consulting. But before that was actually Arthur Andersen, the accounting firm. And that's where I first started my marketing career as a marketing manager.
Wow. Isn't it interesting how just different things in life, lead you to the path that you're at today. And sometimes some of the best things aren't the ones that are planned.
That's
so
right.
What have you seen over time? You saw it a long time ago, marketing trends. How have they changed? And what are we
Look,
seeing?
I mean, if we were to take, Molly, the sort of the big view, the grand arc of, 50, 75, 100 years of marketing, I mean, I think it's clear that, we have moved from an era of kind of mass messaging, mass marketing, mass products, one size fits all. Everybody, watched the same 3 TV channels. Everybody read the same 2 newspapers. Everybody ate the same cornflakes or Wheaties for breakfast, right? And now we get into, personalization, tailoring. Some might call that atomization of both, niche products, niche marketing, niche distribution channels, as well as niche consumer groups. We talk about micro or even hyper targeting now. And that's not to say, by the way, that, reaching your customers through mass channels. I mean, people still watch The Voice and still watch the Super Bowl. And so there are, and we all share, I don't know, Coke or Pepsi in common. So there are mass market products and mass market communication opportunities available. But boy, I mean, mean, I think, we all start to find, that right one small special brand that we've discovered that's super perfect for us. As marketers, we say it's super serving a certain type of customer,
Yeah.
but maybe not for everyone. And, those brands, maybe they were DTC brands for a while, were kind of big and out there, like, hey, maybe Allbirds is right for me, but I still have a pair of Nikes in my closet as well.
Mhm. Is it harder to market now that you're going only to a niche, or niche audience, or not necessarily? Or is it easier because now you can kind of like funnel, that message easier?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's easier or harder. It's just you
Mhm.
need to, as a brand, understand which you are. I mean, there've always been niche brands around. I mean, Ferrari, right, is a niche brand and it's been around for a long time. So, as tempting as it is for, marketers every generation, every year to think like, hey, it's all new and anything that happened in the past didn't matter, right? I mean, there were always, kind of niche brands targeted to a certain set of customers like that, as opposed to a brand like Ford or Toyota that would be more for
Mhm.
everyone. But even within those product portfolios, right? Like the F-150, best-selling pickup truck, I guess, for what is it now,
Mhm.
30, 40, 50 years
Yeah.
running? That's not for everyone either, right? I mean, we get now into the jobs to be done framework. As a consumer, what are you hiring a brand to do? And if you're looking to hire
Mhm.
a brand that's for, you know, your work companion and hauling and your mobile office, well, an F-150 might be great for that. If
Yeah.
you're looking to hire a brand to, give you some adrenaline and thrills on the track on the weekend, well, maybe a brand like Ferrari might be better for that. So, these niche brands have been around for a long time, as well as mass brands. The trick is just understanding which you are and not fooling yourself as a marketing or business leader, and then acting accordingly and using all the tools and levers available to either type of those brands.
Right. Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about AI.
Okay.
Changing everything, right? It's
Yeah.
all anybody's talking about. Are there specific tools you think marketers need to be aware of right now that are really going to help them when it comes to AI?
Yeah. So, I mean, at first I would say, I spend a lot of time, talking with brands, consulting with companies, writing books about AI. First thing I would say is, again, this is another one of these things like it might seem new to us, as if it was just invented 2 years ago by OpenAI with ChatGPT. Just like there were niche brands around
Mhm.
for many, many years, AI has been around for many, many years. It actually, the dawn of it was, credited to the great Alan Turing in an article he wrote in October of 1950. So here we are in October of 2024, right? 74, 75 years later. So, in
We
terms of,
like to say that's new to us.
that's right, new to
AI
us.
is new to the general public.
It's new to the general public, and by the way, there have been some things like the economics of the chipsets, the silicon to process the data, the availability of
Mhm.
data, right? So there have been some kind of major tectonic things that now make it more commercially viable or available for marketers like us to access,
Mhm.
and not just sort of a computer science experiment in a lab someplace. And so, the first thing I say to everybody is, look, you need to actually put the stuff on your phone, put the stuff on your laptop,
Yeah.
use it. I give marketers the personal KPI, right? To like use
Mhm.
5 tools or 5 AI interactions a week, because, like when we were all learning social media, social marketing not that long ago,
Mhm.
we used to say, it's one thing to watch a PowerPoint presentation about Facebook, and it's another thing to sign up and use Facebook, right? And so here
Mhm.
we are again with sort of next wave of tool sets. And so it's sort of, one thing to read articles about ChatGPT or Gemini or Anthropic's Claude or what have you. And it's another thing to give yourself the KPI to say, oh, you know what? I'm actually going to now, go interact with one of those tools and use it as a sidekick, as a partner to help me jumpstart some ideas for a blog post, right? Like now, obviously, we're not completely outsourcing what marketers do in any way, right? Their
Mhm.
machines and the robots are not going to replace us. But boy, to have, a really super knowledgeable, always on sidekick to help us, either brainstorm at the beginning of what we do as marketers in that process, or even final polish it up at the very end. Yes. So look, I mean, I'm a big fan, and I would say you throw some brand names out here, but ChatGPT 4.0, Gemini 1.5 Pro,
Mhm.
Anthropic 3 from Claude, for words and text. Yes, marketers should be using those at least
Mhm.
once a day, whether it's
Mhm.
in their personal life or their professional life, to start understanding how these tools work and what's possible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely agree. And in fact, it kind of plays into what I'm going to be showing you in just a little bit. We have, like I had said, a new, I would consider it a niche tool. It's to help marketers that are specifically making sustainability claims or green marketing claims about their product or their service. We do have a tool that also is AI based. Certainly, we're big fans. We think it is going to save people time. And it's also going to help build customer trust in lots of ways. Really, that's kind of a lot of the crux of marketing, right? How do you build up that customer trust? So let's talk just a little bit about it. Um, what's I guess what's the way that people are going to you think are going to lose trust quickest? How do you lose a customer?
Yeah, look, I mean, sort of trust, reputation. I guess the fancy word is brand equity, right? Like these things are like bank accounts that get built up over time.
Mhm.
I often refer my students to the sort of great quote loosely attributed to Benjamin Franklin, where he said, your personal or a brand's reputation is like growing a tree, right? Like it takes tens of decades, hundreds of years to grow, but
Mhm.
can be chopped down in 5 minutes with one, swing of the
Mhm.
axe. And so, I mean, how do people chop down, right, their brand reputation? How do they chop things down? Well, AI washing, greenwashing, misleading or false claims. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, Molly, and the great tool that you've developed to assist or prevent that.
Mhm.
But that's certainly one way. I mean, I think, knowingly and intentionally cutting corners in terms of the product build, product safety, product ingredients. That's another way people can lose trust. I mean, every brand, unfortunately, has to be prepared and often faces a recall situation. But, if that's one you bring upon yourself by, kind of shoddy QR, well, that's another way that a brand can kind of drain that equity bank account in 5 minutes instantly. I would say another one that's very much on top of consumers' minds all around the world here goes by various names, but shrinkflation, price gouging, right? Like
Mhm.
taking pricing beyond what reasonably your cost of goods increases are. And look, I mean, we talked about the cereal aisle. We don't want to pick on any category, but we've all walked down 48 feet of cereal and you pick up your favorite cereal box and you turn it sideways and it's now about that thin, but the price is double what it used to be, right? We all face increased cost of goods and, we have margins to maintain, et cetera. But, taking pricing beyond, reasonable cost of goods inflation is another way to kind of chop down that tree of your brand's reputation right away. And then, I guess the other one is, making decisions that are better for you, but not in your customer's best interest. Molly, you and I were talking. I recently, had to fill a prescription and had a question about that through one of, I guess, the top two pharmacies here in the U.S. And so I just wanted to ask the pharmacist, call her and ask her a simple question about, the directions that were on my pill bottle. And I counted. It took me 14 push button prompts to get all the way through to the pharmacist. And then even at that point, it said, sorry, look at the FAQ in our app, and hung up on me.
Oh, geez.
Okay. Well, all right. So,
Not
like
good.
here I am telling the story of who that is, the company with the big long paper printed receipts who shall remain nameless. But like somebody actually thought about that and said, what we want to do, because it's like time consuming and expensive to have our customers actually talk to a pharmacist, let's put hurdles intentionally, friction in the path to make the customer experience more miserable. Good way to chop down your brand equity or all the goodwill and reputation, right? Guess what I did? Switch pharmacies.
Yep. Yep, exactly. I've worked in building customer trust for businesses my entire career,
Yep.
and those hurdles, making it hard to unsubscribe to something. Those are things that are not good for customer trust. One thing I learned is though that customers, in some ways, they can be put through the ringer, and trust can be rebuilt. So, for an example, I recently bought a product. I opened the box, open it up, the product was broken. But when I contacted the company, they apologized. They didn't ask any questions. They quickly made it right. To be honest, they rebuilt my trust. It kind of almost higher than it was because I knew that they were somebody I could go to when I had a problem. Where I think it's impossible to build back customer trust is when somebody feels that they're misled, I should say,
Yeah.
or lied to,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
really plays into a lot of why we do what we do at Softly. We help companies. A lot of times they're not really trying to greenwash. They're not trying to mislead. And for those that don't know what greenwashing is, it's misleading a customer about the claims that you're making, usually an environmental or social claim of some sort, saying, you're 100% organic, which it's difficult to be able to prove that, or 100% natural. You're better off saying, hey, we use natural ingredients, and there's a lot of other ways to say it. But yeah, that feeling of being misled is something that we find they don't recover from.
Yeah, I think that's right, Molly. I mean, I often, and you hear me even in our conversation, I sort of compare relationship with brands in many ways, like interpersonal human to human relationships. And so, the old phrase is
Mhm.
you really learn who each other are. We learn who each other are, not in the good times, but in the difficult times, right?
Yep.
It's not how you treat me when things are all going fine. It's how you treat me when we hit a hurdle in the relationship or a speed bump. That's when you sort of show your quote true colors, right? And same thing for brands. And I love that story that you just related. Hey, easy to love a brand when everything's going well. But what I really learn about, how a brand feels about me is when something, doesn't go right. And hey, look, from time to time, product naturally, especially a fragile one, might arrive not in the greatest of conditions. Hey, that happens. And I'm not going to hold that against the brand, but let's now just see in that sort of
Mhm.
speed bump moment, how do they react? And as you say, in the example or your experience there, because they reacted really well, it actually increased or grew the
Mhm.
reputation, the brand equity bank account. And, now your word of mouth and, your social media and your recommendations about that brand, will grow in esteem because of how they handled that tough situation. Whereas we've all been in other situations where things get tough and people say, "Oh, sorry, you didn't read the fine print on the seventh screen down of what the box you automatically clicked and didn't pay attention to, and so too bad we don't have to help you out."
Mhm. Yeah, really good information. It really all usually comes back to how it makes us feel, right? Or how we're treated. Which kind of brings me to my next question, which has to do with transparency and consumers really demanding more transparency now. And I think we almost answered our own question in how we were talking through this, because I was going to ask you, why do you think consumers are so much more interested and worried about having transparent labeling than they were in the past? And I think it's exactly what you're talking about. They had a situation where they didn't feel they had the transparency. Probably. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yes, and I think we've discussed that kind of one important reason why transparency is ever more important. I think the second reason is, I think people are just more conscious about supply chains, ethical supply chains, sourcing, like where did this stuff come from, who built it for me, were they paid a living wage, were they treated fairly? And by the way, not to mix our streams here, but that's also, one of the questions people are raising about AI, right? Is like, where did this training data come? Who was doing the labeling? Was this
Mm-hmm.
done in another continent? And how were those people treated while they were like labeling the training data? But same thing here. A friend of mine has tried to put a vegetable company together in the frozen food aisle, and competing in the frozen food aisle is like brutally difficult or brutally competitive, thin margins, big players in the space. And one of the things that he tried to do to differentiate was to put a QR code on the back of the bag of the frozen corn that you can take out with your phone, and it'll show you like the whole chain of like where was this processed, where was it actually grown, was it GMO or non-GMO, and all of those kinds of things. So I think transparency can be used as sort of a positive differentiator, and also absence of a negative differentiator, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, love it, love it. I'm actually going to share my screen now and actually show you what we built, because it plays into it. But I want to make sure that we get back to answering some questions from our
Hmm.
audience. So
Yeah.
stick around. I am going to share my screen, show you some things, and we can kind of talk through it. And I think it really plays into everything that we're talking about. So can you see the screen right here?
Yep.
I'm assuming you can. Okay, so this is what we call, Jim, our green claim navigator. So what we found is marketers, it could be marketing departments, it could be product developers, sustainability managers, maybe compliance departments and business owners. They don't always know what they can and cannot say about a product. We have consumers on one side demanding this transparency. So they're having to say more about their product. And they want to, especially when it comes to like environmental and social things. On the flip side, you have regulators that are saying, hey, if you're going to say something, we're going to start cracking down. Consumers are also cracking down with class action lawsuits. So you've got all these consumer brands. So all you guys that are feeling really kind of like getting it from both ends, getting squished in between in the middle and having to make these claims. So we put together a really easy to use platform and tool where if you can see on the left-hand side, there's about 70 different claims that we bring into this platform that you can make about your product or service. If I kind of scroll down here, you can see a whole bunch of them. So let's say I want to make a biodegradable claim about my product. You can pick what industry do you work in, or what category of products do you have, and there's a whole bunch also to pick from. So I'm going to pick just consumer products, and I sell in the United States. You will see that immediately this is going to populate all of the information you need to know, or at least everything we think you need to know about making a biodegradable claim in the consumer products industry in the United States. So starting in the left-hand side, you can see there's special considerations. What do I really need to know? Are there things that are going to maybe get me in trouble? So we kind of put those here. There's kind of some specific things for specific areas. Like, for example, it's actually illegal in 4 different states to say that your plastic bags are biodegradable. It's kind of a key thing to know, because when state regulations are more stringent than federal regulations, it really throws consumer brands, in a tailspin of having to keep up with it all. If we scroll down here, these are regulations that you should know about in making this claim. These are all clickable, so you can actually see the actual regulation having to do with making a biodegradable claim, as well as any case law. So you can learn so much from lawsuits. Where have other companies gotten themselves in trouble? And I'm sure you're looking at this list and you're like, wow, I cannot believe this many companies, and these are recent, have actually gotten, most of them have gotten, in litigation and found themselves in a lawsuit for making a biodegradable claim in the consumer products business. Once again, these are clickable. You can actually see the actual lawsuit to make sure that you're not making that same mistake. And then if we actually go up to the top right, there's a list of certifications. These are third-party validations that you could use to validate your claim. So ones that you can kind of consider. So that's kind of the Green Claim Navigator in a nutshell. Other than what I think is probably the most important part, which is our competitive landscape. So in this competitive landscape, once again, this is all very self-serve. You can, kind of pick the product category you want to look at. So if we want to look at, let's say, beauty and personal care, we have I don't know if you saw just a second ago, we have about 150,000 products in our database. And you can actually see in the personal care business how many products are actually making some sort of a sustainability claim. If we click into it a little bit further, we can kind of dig deeper. We can see what are the top certifications that companies in our product category are getting. I'm going to go over to another screen because we're going to go through this pretty quickly. But we can also see who our competitors are. So let's say I wanted to take a look specifically at maybe I sell a shampoo. I can go in here, pull up a shampoo, and I can see what products are out there, what claims they're making, and what certifications they have. That would be my competitors. So this is just a very touching a tip of the iceberg of what's in this competitive data. So I'm going to actually go out back to our claim navigator. And you will also see in the top right-hand side, this is our AI tool. This is our chat ESG, we call it. If you click on this, this is a chat very similar to chat GPT that you're already used to using. So I'm not going to actually go through it, but you can ask it a question and it will immediately give you answers as well as the documents you need that back up the answer to the question that you're asking. So ESG stands for environmental, social governance. We kind of specialize in green marketing and sustainability sort of topics. So this would be specific to anything having to do with marketing your claim as sustainable.
Super cool, super powerful stuff. It's really difficult for, any brand, even with a big brand with good in-house or external legal counsel to kind of navigate this landscape. And by the way, to just have it all right here, obviously you should still, I assume you recommend working with legal
Mhm.
counsel. This doesn't replace that, but boy, it sort of like puts everything at my fingertips. Like most AI tools, shrinks the time to options or time to decisions. So congratulations. I mean, really, really cool demo.
Hey, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Yeah, exactly what you said. And that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to save time. It's meant to make sure you're not missing something because we're staying up on top of it. Things can change overnight. And also, like you had said, kind of like that legal department. When you go to your legal department, you'll have the information ahead of time. So it's also streamlining that process if you work for a big company.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. And Molly, I also should add, I really like, sort of the technique behind the AI that you built. This is a RAG model, so therefore it's grounded in the actual case law and the actual documents, and less prone or susceptible to hallucinate because of something that it might have read on Reddit at 2 a.m. ranting by some crazy non-expert person about ESG, right? So, you've screened kind of those things out, which is always a risk of general AI tools in your very focused AI tool.
exactly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about marketing in general and how can marketers ensure that they're meeting our customer expectations? We talked about transparency, but that's not the only customer expectation. There's other ones out there. What are your suggestions for people?
Well, look, I mean, one of the exciting things about marketing, and we've been talking about it as a theme throughout our discussion today, is that marketing is generally the most external facing, most customer or consumer facing group within the organization. Um, Perhaps public relations or product development, R&D, others might interact with customers, but certainly, more so than your manufacturing or your finance department. It's marketing's job and role to be customer facing. And so, good marketers spend a lot of time uh, interacting with customers, prospects,
Mhm,
lapsed users that we want to win back, competitive users that we want to conquest, et cetera. And those qualitative and quantitative techniques can range from, deep consumer ethnographies where we're in consumers' houses. I mean, you were talking about beauty care shampoo, right? Like in their bathrooms, looking at what's in their shower, looking at what's in their medicine cabinets,
mhm,
trying to get to that sort of third, fourth, fifth why. Like, why do you buy this? Why is that important? Why did you say that? Why did you say that? As
mhm,
well as then, some larger, more quantitative, kind of ongoing studies. And so,
mhm,
understanding both overt as well as latent or subconscious motivators and needs is what makes marketing exciting, but also what makes it challenging, right? Is to really get,
mhm,
to the deeper motivations and then to sort of match both your products as well as your messaging, as well as your, media targeting so that it all comes together in right place, right time, right message, right? I mean, that's what we've
mhm.
proverbially, I mean, it's a cliche, but that's what we all always try to
Exactly.
strive for. And that's why, like, really understanding what makes the customer tick, because in most all cases, we tell marketers, you, marketer, are not the target, right? So it's very dangerous marketing, right?
That's a hard one, isn't it? Yeah,
Mistake
that's
number
true.
one is to
Yep,
sort of substitute
I
your
do it.
experience or judgment for
Yeah.
that of the target audience.
Exactly. Okay, so there's a lot of marketers out there that are planning for 2025. So they are now putting together their budgets, they're putting together their plans, they're going to be going to upper management possibly. What are your tips of how to approach this that's going to set them up for success?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we are in the heart of annual planning season, especially for all the brands or
Mhm.
businesses that are on a calendar year fiscal starting January 1. Now is like crunch time to be drafting,
Mhm.
writing, circulating, and getting your plans approved for next year. So I wrote a recent article on this up on the Think with Google blog platform. And my core advice is really think hard whether the philosophical approach to your annual plan document is task based or outcome based.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, many marketers, most marketers, I would say, write task based plans, right?
Mhm.
They make a list of, hey, here's all the cool stuff we'd like to do next year. We'd like to refresh our website. We would like to launch 3 new products. We would like to, hire some micro influencers on TikTok. Whatever it is that you want to do, you list all those cool tasks and then you put a price tag against each of the tasks, and then you kind of hand that to your chief financial officer and you say to her, in order to do the cool stuff, all the cool stuff we want to do next year, it's going to be $1 million or $10 million or $100 million, depending on how long your list is and how big your brand is.
Mhm.
And
And as a
naturally,
CFO, I say, but what's in it for us?
well, totally, right? Like
Right?
naturally, when you hand a CFO something that looks like a bill, her first instinct is to trim the bill, right? To cut it
Exactly.
down, to give it a
Mhm.
haircut. And then marketers grumble, oh, CFO doesn't get it. And we have this sort of weird Venus and Mars moment. But it's your job to move from a task-based plan to an outcome-based plan, which is to sit with your CFO beforehand and ask her, what as a company, as a business, are we trying to accomplish next year? We're trying to grow revenue, profit, share. What region are we trying to grow in, et cetera? And then you go back as a marketer to say, well, then kind of what activities do I need to put in place to drive towards that outcome, right? If we want to get our current users to buy more, market penetration, okay, well, how much more do they like 2 more times a year, 3 more times a year? Average order value needs to go from $5 to $10, and then break that down to say, well, what kind of persuasion or techniques or interactions do we need in order to drive that desired business outcome? What does that then likely cost? But now you notice, Molly, we're having sort of an ROI conversation, right? Like if you want to
Mhm.
grow the business by $1 million in profit, the investment required to do that is 100,000. And now that's sort of an investment conversation, and you're on much better footing with your CFO than a wish list task based conversation.
Okay, this is what the audience they're like all of a sudden lighten up asking questions about this one because so how do okay, so I'm a marketer. I have not really worked with I work with a budget but haven't really worked with ROI. So should every task have some sort of a KPI? They're wanting to know, a KPI or some sort of a return on investment associated with it, right?
Yeah, because if I'm, a marketing department where historically my focus is on Marcom, right? Like marketing communications, making funny TikToks, getting friends, fans, likes, downloads, followers. And by the way, even B2B
Mhm.
marketing organizations are susceptible to this. Hey, my job is to write a white paper and get as many downloads as I can. What happens after that's not my job, not my problem. That's for the sales team to deal with, right?
Mhm.
No, that's should be marketers' focus as well. So, I mean, look, a number of ways that we can do this. First of all, it's setting a KPI that's a business focused KPI, right? That's not just an activity based KPI. Downloads, friends,
Mhm.
fans, likes, follows, right? Those are means to a bigger end, which is like leads, starts, new customers,
Mhm.
installs, subscriptions, those kind of purchases, actually, those
Mhm.
kinds of things. So, yeah, I mean, it's fine to measure and continue to monitor the intermediary or means metrics, but you have to start measuring the ends metrics as well. And now we're starting to look at kind of then productivity, right? For each
Mhm.
dollar that my CFO gives me, how can I maximize the outcome based metrics along the way? And yeah, Molly, the measure for that is marketing return on investment, or MROI, which is incremental profit driven divided by my fully loaded costs. And by the way, that's not just the cost to buy the media, that's the cost to make the ads and hire the agency and staff my
Interesting.
marketing department as
Yeah.
well. So incremental profit, not
Mhm.
total revenue. It's profit and incremental profit because, by the way, you know what? McDonald's would sell some hamburgers without the marketing department this week anyway, right? So we can only take
Mhm.
credit for the lift, the incremental profit, divided by the costs that are required to deliver that profit.
Yeah, so we're really working toward making marketing departments a profit center versus a cost center, or at least being able to do your best to be able to put it in that light and show how you're going to make a difference. So we
That's
do have
right.
another audience. Oh,
And
go
I
ahead.
was just to finish the thought. I'm sorry to step on you there, Molly, but just to finish the thought, right? Like we recognize that this is going to take some smart estimations, some rule of thumb, some industry standards. We might not have all the numbers like first time we go down this
Mhm.
path, but you just sort of disclose that to your CFO and say, hey, look, this is sort of industry standard until we have our own number. We're going to use a conversion rate of 3% as a starting point. And
Yep.
now at
A
least you sort of
forecast.
just, yeah, it's a forecast and you walk your
Right.
way towards perfection.
Yep, exactly. So, kind of on the same collaboration note, collaborating with CFOs, we have a question from the audience and asking about what about marketing departments also collaborating with sustainability departments? Have you worked in that at all or worked with them? And do you have any tips?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts and experience and advice on this as well, Molly. But in my experience, my perspective here is that, you know, not only is marketing the most customer facing department, it's also the most collaborative department, right? So,
Hmm.
yes, we need to work with, well, product development if we feel it's important to our end users to make any sort of green or sustainability claim. Now we want to talk about, can we actually build a product like that? Can we commercialize it? What is the impact on cost of goods? Right? Supply chain. Can we source enough of that green or organic input into our product to meet our volume goals and targets? So you're going to work with the R&D and the manufacturing team. Probably you want to work with, if there is an ESG team and a PR team who's also out kind of seeding stories and interviews and in the press about this, as well as then your CFO, as we talked about earlier, to understand, well, if it does raise our cost of goods by a little bit to make those kinds of claims and source those kinds of inputs in our product, what's the payback, right? And are we all in agreement? So, in my experience, 100%, I would agree with the questioner or the questioner here that this is not an isolated in a vacuum thing for marketing on an island to do by themselves, Molly.
Hmm. Yeah, certainly. It starts in with product development, then it usually moves over to, okay, if it's a green claim of some sort, a sustainability manager is going to oversee it. They're going to have the marketing department put information out about it, then which they then run by back to the sustainability manager as well as the compliance department or legal
Legal.
department. So it's kind of like this. I don't even want to say a triangle because now it's just so many different spokes that all have to be involved. We're coming to the end of this webinar, but I want to just share one thing because I think this is a really good story that kind of illustrates what you were just talking about. Keurig Green Mountain has been in the news a lot lately. And what happened to them, and a lot of it is a little bit of speculation on my part, but they make the little coffee pods that go into their Keurig coffee machine. And they were having some backlash that, hey, there's extra waste when you have these little plastic pods. So product developer says, hey, we can make this out of a recyclable plastic, a really good recyclable plastic, the best one out there. So they do all this, product development. They marketers now take a hold of it and they say, hey, we've got, recyclable coffee pods. All of a sudden we're entering a new, it's not as bad as it used to be, right? Spent tons of money on this marketing campaign only to find out that there's actually a regulation that has to do with recyclability and misleading the public, where it says if a product is not easily recyclable by 60% of the population that you're marketing it to, you cannot say that it's recyclable. In the case of these pods, people were putting the pods into their recyclable bin, but they were not getting recycled because the recycling facilities could not take them. They were too small. They fell right through the cracks. What started out as probably a noble thing on the part of a product developer or somewhere along the line ended up going terribly wrong, terribly wrong. They got sued for about $10 million in the US in a class action lawsuit, another $3 million in Canada, and just got hit by the SEC by regulators here in the United States with another couple million. So, and this doesn't only happen to the big companies. We're seeing it happen to middle-sized and small companies. It starts with consumers fighting back, and then regulators are now starting to take hold. So just had to share that because that collaboration piece, hugely important.
Great cautionary tale. If only there were an easy to access ESG claims navigator that would help us all prevent that situation. Here we are, right?
Oh, gotta love you, Jim. Thank you so much. Okay, on that note, I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
If you are interested in Jim's latest book, it's called The AI Marketing Canvas. Here is a QR code with a link. You can also Google it and find it as well. So, but that's here. Just so you know, this webinar, if you have to go back to anything, it is going to be available on the Softly Solutions website, on our YouTube channel. So you can always go back and reference it later. If you'd like to try our Green Claim Navigator, we also have a special offer today because coincidentally, today is the day that we are launching it. We are offering a free 7-day trial, as well as 50% off that first month. So I also put a little stay in touch QR code where you can just reach out directly to us and give us your information, and we'll get back to you and give you more information. But we would love to have you try the Green Claim Navigator, talk through us. We're early stage company, so we'd love to get feedback. You can tell us what you like and don't like, and we will be able to build it to to what the customer actually needs. So Jim, thanks so much for being with us and doing your part. And I want to tell everybody, please tread softly on the world.
Wonderful. Thanks, Molly.
Have a good day.